So I got genuine. A lot of people are confused as to what they should be doing once they reach late game, or if they're heading into late game and really want to prep their account. I was too, and I am, but I want to give you some advice as an individual who's made a lot of mistakes on their account, as an individual who has a couple characters they built up relatively well, and someone who's actually farmed a lot of relics, because, being blunt, level 50 or Trailblaze level 50 doesn't change that much for you. And if you're looking at your account and you're wondering who to build or what to prioritize, yes, the same general rules apply. Ascension materials are great, trace mats are great, relics aren't a good value. Even at level 50, the 1.5 or 1.3 chance they have to actually drop 2 still doesn't make them a worthwhile investment, strictly because you're spending 40 stamina, and that 40 stamina could be way more useful on another unit, or maybe getting a unit leveled up, especially if they're a defensive one, whether that's Fire Trailblazer, whether that's Japard, it doesn't matter, even March 7th. And yes, I understand that a lot of individuals do legitimately want to pick up their account and do legitimately want to push into harder content, but harder content doesn't give enough rewards to justify the cost that would otherwise be associated with investing that much stamina into relics, because they aren't worthwhile, because they provide you with some value, yes, but is that value more than what you would otherwise get by ascending characters or the light cones or anything else? I don't think so. And so with that being said, it's very difficult for even me to recommend them, because yes, I farmed them out for my Ting Yun, for my Fire Trailblazer, for my Yanqing, Zile, and Jinyuan, but they're not good enough, and the drop rates aren't high enough for me to say that 40 stamina was really worthwhile, or their fuel spent, or their refreshes was worthwhile enough to say, yeah, this was a good choice. I would honestly say that for the vast majority of people, it's just okay. I think that your best investments would be your light cones, your character levels, and then your main traces. And even then, these smaller ones, they're there, but unless it's something like crit rate, I don't think it's worthwhile. I also want to keep in mind, if you're an individual like me, and maybe you have one DPS that you really enjoy, one character you really like, for me it's Yanjing, do not level up their traces beyond level 4 until you're much later on, until your account is in a much better position. These bonus abilities are really nice, especially the speed buff for Ting Yun, but after level 4, the material cost for all of these is so high and jumps up to an extreme point where it is very debatable as to whether or not you should be spending the resources on these. Now, with all of that being said, if you are skipping out on banners, if you're skipping out on characters, if you're skipping out on light cones, yes, there can be an argument that's made for the value that light cones have or the value that multiple units have, because you don't have as many 5-star units or 5-star damage dealers to fill out your roster in DPS positions. I have Quantum, I have Ice, and now I have Lightning. I don't need a lot of other characters. I'm skipping Kafka just because I don't like her design. She looks like a fish to me, but I don't need a lot of units. And so for me personally, I can invest in my roster knowing comfortably that the next couple units aren't going to be of interest to me. If you're someone who wants to get the most value out of the time spent in this game, do farm Simulated Universe. Do go around the map if you have the time to actually, legitimately farm out the warp trotters or the enemies you have, because those mob drops become infinitely more valuable as time goes on, because you're spending less time exploring, because you have less reasons to explore. Being blunt, this game, at least to me, was slightly unfinished, and as a result of that, I have no reason to really go around the map unless I'm farming, or unless I find a chest and want to hunt those chests. And so as a result, you begin to drop out and have less and less resources available to you, because you haven't farmed and you haven't defeated as many enemies, because you have no reason to do so. But that's a mini side point that probably doesn't affect a lot of people. With Simulated Universe, it's a good idea to farm out those extra drops, those extra curios. Maybe pick a path. For me, I hadn't used Elation. I used it one time and that was it. Once I got Jinyuan, I started using Elation. So as a result, I was still getting a bunch of gems and a bunch of, what are they called here? Stellar Jades from Simulated Universe. And that's really been boosting my account. For the vast majority of people, if you're looking at your accounts, if you're wondering what to do, whether you should build a character or not, I would honestly look at what role they fulfill. If you look at another character in the future, whether that's leaks, whether that's something you've already seen and heard, or whether that's something you've played, and then find out if they fulfill that same role. If you are looking for a debuffer who's already on your account versus somebody like Silverwolf, you probably won't be needing them. But if you're looking at a damage dealer for Lightning and you don't have anyone else, hey, perhaps you should probably build them up now unless you're going for Kafka or Genuine. I think that if you're an individual who primarily wants to clear content, a tier list probably is helpful now, but later on, I would say if you're watching this and most people are level 60 or whatever, it's probably not that beneficial to you simply because many of us haven't reached that upper echelon stage where we can't see, is there a dropping off point for a vast majority of the supports we have? Yes, somebody like Tinu may be great now, and she's probably going to be great later on, but some may overtake her in value. Maybe Bronya has much less uses in the future because of other units. Maybe there's a more accessible unit who people want more. I built up a bunch of different characters, and in my perspective, in my opinion, I know I don't need any more DPSs that occupy the ice elements, quantum, or lightning. So I'm skipping Kafka. Silverwolf, she's iffy at the moment because quantum, but this leaves me room to consider other units. I have my 2 healers. I don't need a 5-star variation when I already have Bailu. And so, if you're somebody who's looking at your account and wondering how to pre-plan, look at what you have, what you aim for, and whether you have a chance of getting them. If you are an individual, I can't summon now, great. If you're an individual who wants a buffer and you already have Tingyun, you already have the position occupied. So it makes no sense to stack up on buffers. And if you're somebody who wants to really conserve resources, being tentatively honest here, I don't believe tier lists are worth putting all your money into. As of right now, we haven't reached the end game, and by this I mean this is pretty much a mid game. We haven't reached a point where we can max out every single unit. Like, I don't know many individuals who can unlock the final trace for a lot of these characters unless they've been speedrunning. And if you are at that point, cool, great. But it's going to be difficult for us to judge, okay, how strong is a character right now versus how strong they become later on. And if you're free to play, if you don't have that many resources, it's difficult for you to gauge what is the value for investment you're getting. If you get Genuine, how much you're going to have to put into him compared to somebody else like Serval, who you already have. And the amount of gems and jade spent for a character does matter, especially long term, especially if you're looking at other units. Maybe you want to pick up a character and maybe you want to build them up later on. Maybe you're going for 10 young Eidolons because a lot of hers are great. I would honestly prioritize building up a good 4-team unit, whether that's a DPS like Jinyuan or Zile or Yanqing or whoever, alongside a support like Tingyun, a healer, whether that's Bailu, Natasha, or maybe even Locha if you're waiting for him, and a support, defensive unit, whoever that is. I would say prioritize building out one good 4 units, because a whole team of 8 is necessary in Forgotten Hall and Memory of Chaos, but in Memory of Chaos, the rewards, at least in my opinion, aren't worth you speed running up until that point. Thank you. Bronya is like the biggest threat during this fight. In regards to characters, yes, I know it's important to fill out your roster, and I do recommend filling out your roster of units that you legitimately want to use, not units that you feel forced to use. If you hate Tingyun, yes, I'm aware she's a strong character, but if you legitimately feel like you're never going to use that character and never going to like that character, you're probably going to regret investing into them long term, strictly because you hate them as a unit. And it makes it very difficult to actively justify, yeah, put your resources, put your investment into this one character, because they can be great. And if they're great for your account and you legitimately like them, that's even better. But for the vast majority of individuals, I know it's very difficult to likely ignore a lot of the issues you realistically, and probably rightly so, have with characters. I advocate fully for building who you like, regardless of meta. I like QQ. I think she's adorable. I'm gonna build her, even though I have Zila, because for me personally, it's far better to do that. If you have the time, farm some of the universe. If you have the time, maybe try pushing into Forgotten Hall. Not necessarily because the rewards are worthwhile, but more so because it gives you a chance to really test out your account and learn how to properly manage things, because you can out DPS a lot, but realistically, if you know what you're doing, whether that's managing heals, whether that is effectively using your skill points, then you can get through a lot more content than you otherwise would be able to. Rhonda, look, I need you to please exit this realm of life. Please. This is probably an extremely disjointed video. I'm not gonna lie, it took me 4 separate takes, so you're probably watching those 4 to 5 different takes sort of merged together as best as I can manage. It is 4 a.m. I'm still doing tests and exams. So I'm sorry. Either way though, if you cap this far, hey, you should just subscribe at this point. If you can endure whatever that video was, you can endure anything, my guy. Good luck on your summons. Join the server while you're at it.